Welcome back, everybody. I hope that you're doing awesome and this week has been very good to you. Now, without any further hesitation, let's buckle up and head on down that rabbit hole. Let's go.
This is wild. A company called Volonaut is set to unveil their air bike. In other words, it's a flying bike, and this thing is insane. It uses jet turbine propulsion technology for vertical takeoff, hovering, and the pilot to go pretty much anywhere. Right now, it can last in the air for about 45 minutes before you need to refuel, and that depends on weather conditions, how far and how high you go, and of course, the weight of the pilot. It was constructed from lightweight carbon materials, making it one of the smallest, lightest powered aircraft capable of carrying a pilot. How much does it cost? It is pretty pricey, about $500,000, just about the price of a house. They say that they're doing this because they're currently targeting a niche market of wealthy early adopters, tech collectors, and emergency services, because it could be used to search an area where a traditional vehicle would not be able to. For those of you that are going to say that this is CGI, this is actually real footage taken from their proof of concept test flight. I think this thing belongs in a Harry Potter movie, Star Wars, or E.T., but either way, I want one. Do you? As always, let me know what you think about all of this down below.
$500,000 for a flying bike? Would you pay that? Is it worth it? I'd expect something like this to be heavily restricted and limited for commercial purchase. Cool technology, but who gets to fly one of these things? Bear in mind, you can't actually ride a bike, an electric bike in the UK, if it exceeds 15.5 miles an hour. Just saying. You're probably going to need all kinds of paperwork to even get your hands on one of these.
UPS is cutting 20,000 jobs this year as it slashes Amazon deliveries. More layoffs, great. So apparently they're laying off 20,000 people. They're closing dozens of facilities, and it's reducing its shipments from Amazon. And of course, they got to lay off, the delivery drivers and the package handlers, workers. Not only that, they're going to shutter about 73 leased and owned buildings, and they may find additional facilities for closure as well. But hey, it's going to save them $3.5 billion. Now, UPS has about 490,000 employees. So if you cut that many people, you're talking about 4% of its staff. And don't forget, last year they cut 12,000 management positions. They gave a statement saying, given the current macroeconomic uncertainty, this cannot be good, America. But it looks like they're still hanging in there in the stock market. Good for UPS. But this is wild. Last week, they agreed to acquire Canada-based healthcare logistics company Antler Health Group, Inc. for $1.6 billion. The move is the latest in a string of deals as the company seeks to reach $20 billion in healthcare revenue. UPS is in healthcare? You know it's not good when you live in a consumer-based economy and the parcel service is laying off people. Not trending well.
20,000 jobs gone at UPS. Is this just business or a sign of a bigger shift in the economy? We know that Amazon handled the tariff situation pretty poorly. Is this another preemptive move by them? I love how the USA robot was demonstrating its martial arts ability whilst the China robot was shown busting moves like it was on America's Got Talent or something. As for the Tartarian robot, I think that is a little bit of a stretch.
I am drinking my own moon blood. It's rich in stem cells, iron, nutrients. It's something that I started back when I was training Tantra in Thailand. And it's a ritual we do. We believe there's power in it. There's stem cells in it. There's iron. There's vitality. And so we don't want to lose that. So for the average person, I'd probably say don't do it. Because people are going to say, oh, it's waste. But no, blood is life, right? And Dr. Group and I had these conversations. Now I'm back on it.
Wow.
I felt great. And the moon blood actually tastes kind of sweet.
You just drink it straight up?
I have my moon cup. I just put it back.
It's absolutely horrendous. But unfortunately, she is not joking. I apologise if I put anyone off their dinner. This is actually a practice that witches and Satanists use. That's why she mentioned the moon and she called it moon blood. I'm not sure how much I can speak about stuff like this on this platform, but I'm sure some of you have delved down that rabbit hole and we know where that goes. Very sickening stuff, but like I've said before, they don't hide it anymore. They'll jump on a podcast and openly tell the world what they're doing.
What the hell? I sincerely apologise to anyone eating their supper. I hope you weren't eating tomato soup. Well, from that horrifying note to our latest compilation of weird UAP sightings from across the world to try and take your mind off that disaster we just saw, let's take a look.
Utah, give me 2. Anda, güey. A la verga. A la verga, cayó un ovni, plebe, cayó un ovni. A la verga, ¿dónde está? Allá arriba, güey. Platillo volador. Un platillo volador, cadera. Ahí va Sebastián a verlo. Allá va, era. Va por acá, güey. Dale, pues se cayó un ovni, plebe. Guacha esa madre. A la verga, a la verga. Un platillo volador. Guacha esa madre, un platillo volador, plebe. Nunca he visto un platillo volador tan cerquita. Júguenlo ustedes, guacha. Y nos andamos alucinando, ¿Qué es eso, tío? ¿Un platillo volador? A la verga esa madre, qué pedo, güey. Allá baila, güey, guacha. Algo trae esa madre, guacha, esa madre, güey, qué pedo. Agárralo, güey. Nunca he visto un ovni tan cerquita a la verga, plebuta, no mames, esa madre está otro pedo.
So recently I've been receiving multiple requests for the video I posted back in 2022 regarding the mermaid, the body found. As we all know, it was a major documentary that was released almost 15 years ago by the Animal Planet regarding mermaids and whether they're real or not. This specific clip revolves around a group of fishermen who were pulling up their catch and they captured something much more. Now, it caused a huge divide worldwide regarding the validity of it. A hard left said, no, this is part of the movie, it's not real. The other side said, no, this is real. And it was a group of fishermen who actually captured this. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide, but take a look at it, comment below, and tell me what you think.
That shit just crashed. Holy fuck.
Oh my god! Oh.
Oh!
That Sony UFO car is absolute garbage. There's no way that that is not AI generated. Though, saying that, it won't be long before something like this gets revealed. As for the military plane malfunction, I hope that was aimed at a non-residential area, because that explosion would have been devastating to anyone unfortunate enough to be in its path.
Hey, it's Glamham, April 29th, 2025. I think we should just take a little quick look over here.
This is a 6.8 magnitude earthquake in the Macquarie Island region that sits halfway between New Zealand and Antarctica. The depth was 10 kilometers and there is no tsunami warning. I did notice yesterday it was a little active here, and lo and behold, today there is larger seismic activity. I should note that USGS had the depth of the Macquarie quake at 4.5 kilometers, but Volcano Discovery had it at 10 kilometers. I couldn't help but notice also this is definitely more spotty with smaller quakes than usual. As always, I hope everyone is safe, and we'll see you in the comments. Take care.
Discrepancies in quake data do raise a lot of questions. How does this even happen? Is it really just science, or is something else shaking beneath the surface?
These are the different layers of protection that this physician has to use with dealing with infectious diseases. So first, you can see he's wearing a hat. Then he starts applying a mask, which is an N95 mask. And then he's putting on top of his glasses, he's putting on goggles. And then eventually he's going to put protective gown. So this is important because there's different diseases, especially some that are airborne and some that require different types of layers of protection. So with this setup, he's essentially putting himself at the best position to be able to go and interact with patients who might have these very contagious infections. Additional hospital masks are just not enough when dealing with these contagious infections. So that's why oftentimes, especially when you're dealing with tuberculosis, the epidemic virus, we gotta wear the N95. Absolutely wild.
But all we need to be protected from certain diseases and viruses is a paper mask worn at all times, right? Right? Tensions are clearly being stoked. Who benefits from this manufactured outrage? Certainly not the innocent people who fall victim to all this aggression and violence. I know this is a Simpsons meme, but I say this with sincerity. Think of the children. The innocent children who have no idea what is going on or why things are happening. What will they grow up to think? Having to witness this type of needless aggression towards one another. A huge thank you to my amazing channel members. Honestly, thank you so much for your support. It keeps this channel alive and it continues to exist by your hand. If you too are interested in showing that level of support on a monthly basis, head down to the description below and click the link. You'll find all the exclusive perks which come with joining too. Cheers.
Everything vibrates at a frequency, and if you know that frequency, you can control things. This is the moth, and this is diagramming all the frequencies of the elements and what their vibrational frequencies are, and the numbers that measure those frequencies. And they're all the numbers we get from looking at these ancient traditions that recur over and over and over again.
And so through this technology, they're able to move stones or cut stones or all the above?
All the above.
We call these transducers, which is just a fancy word for speakers. These speakers, they only work at one frequency, and this frequency is 40 kilohertz, which we shouldn't be able to hear. Only bats, dogs, and other animals should be able to hear 40 kilohertz. But because the ultrasound is so powerful, if we put some particles, they should be kept in midair with the power of sound.
Interesting clip. We know that vibration can control matter. Everything is made of frequencies and vibration, every single thing in our physical existence anyway. But what do you think? Is this the most likely theory out there?
This is a photo of the lady in black in Salem, Massachusetts. I literally am gonna get nightmares from this. It's so creepy, and the backstory is even creepier. The photo was taken in the Joshua Ward house. It's most commonly seen on the top floor of the building, accompanied by unexplainable crying sounds. Nobody knows what she wants, no one knows where she came from. Everyone has similar sightings. People say that she's a female spirit in a black costume and even blacker curls. The lady in black has been described as having transparent skin. People say it's as if she was made of glass. So like you can see through her skin, but not through her hair and her cloak. The photo was taken by Carson Realty in the 1980s. This is a full photo of the figure. She has unbrushed hair. I thought it was like really curly. Some people think it's unbrushed. Some people think it's curly. I've never seen her. I'm just looking at the picture. This is a Polaroid photo that was taken during a Christmas party, and people also refer to her as the witch. And he took this photo intending on capturing an employee, but he got this instead. Absolutely horrifying, but this is not the only ghost that haunts this estate. Let me know if you want to hear about the others. And come over here for longer freaky videos.
Spirits and ghosts are a controversial topic at best, but even I can't resist the lore behind these stories. Are they just created to soothe people's morbid curiosity, or is there some truths out there that we just cannot explain and comprehend?
The idea that some of the structures in ancient Egypt are far older than conventional wisdom or conventional modern day archaeology, modern day Egyptologists. They would like us to believe that all of this spawned from a very specific time period, far, far older than we think.
What I was alluding to is this really opened up with our work on redating the Great Sphinx.
Yes.
And I think you know the story, but maybe just to summarize in the smallest of nutshells, John Anthony West, before I met him, he had mentioned in one line that the Sphinx had been weathered by rain. I would say precipitation as a geologist, not wind and sand. So this, if it were true, and it is true, would put the Sphinx back to a much earlier period, that there were indications that dynastic Egypt as we know it, going back to about 3000 BC, was really a legacy of what I call now an earlier cycle of civilization, something that goes back much, much earlier, which at this point I date back to the end of the last ice age.
Challenging the timeline of the Sphinx. Now, I still maintain that the Sphinx, along with many other structures in this world, are not what we are told they are. Erosion patterns suggest a civilization predating even dynastic Egypt.
Now, the weird part about these outages is that people still had cell phone service. So it makes you wonder what's still turned on, just like the cameras. Last year in Arizona, we had power outages. But what was interesting is when these group of people kind of went to this bank, and you can imagine what they tried to do. We won't say that. But you can imagine what they tried to do. They just kind of roamed around the bank, and they drove around the bank, and they kind of checked everything while the power was out and everything. All of a sudden, about 10 squad cars pulled up. So it meant that the cameras were still working while the power was out. So it really makes you wonder what's actually happening. And this is why you should kind of question everything. When the power's really out and your cell phone towers or cell phone things are still working, there's still power. It's almost like a test. That's kind of what it is. That's what I would kind of think of it as. And it's almost kind of seeing what people will do. And now that you've got their phone, you can get their data as they text people in the panic saying, oh my gosh, I've got no money, I've got no this, I've got no that. It's all data. Data harvesting is what these events are. That's why I say people need to take a vacation, go out into nature, and spend time with nature. Because when you come back, you can kind of just see through the nonsense. But if you're hooked in, like the Matrix, and you're hooked into this social media and everything that's just trying to prey on your energy and harvest your energy and loose your energy all the time, well then you can't see otherwise.
Yet another take on the recent power outages in Europe. The theories are flying about, but will the truth ever come to light? Wishful thinking, maybe.
You might want to stop wearing sunglasses because that's why this is happening to you. I don't know what to make of this, to be honest, but I've seen a lot of videos of people talking about this online, even some scientists. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Think about it, back in the day, the OG humans, they weren't wearing sunglasses, they weren't wearing sun cream. Of course, over time our bodies have evolved, but still we managed to cope in extreme temperatures with nothing. The thing that people have been saying recently is, if you wear sunglasses, you're actually going to get more sunburn. Now if you think about it, when you're not wearing sunglasses, your mind and your body senses that it's sunny, so it's going to protect yourself. If you are wearing sunglasses, then your body's going to sense that it's not sunny and actually make you burn more. As I say though, 50% of people online are saying this is 100% true, other 50% saying not at all. However, it is similar to the whole blue light situation. If you're going to bed and watching things with bright blue screens before bed, it's going to stimulate your mind thinking it's daytime, so you're not going to sleep as easy. So if you're wearing sunglasses outside, your mind's going to think it's not that sunny and maybe not protect you as much. So there's been a lot of researchers coming out speaking about this, saying basically the science behind it, the chemicals that are released when you wear sunglasses and how bad it is for you. But on the flip side, there's also been researchers coming out saying, no, this is not true. So please let me know in the comments down below your input. And we also know, of course, there are certain toxic sun creams that you definitely shouldn't use. And there's been this whole debate for a while that people have been arguing over as well. Let me know your thoughts, I'll keep you posted.
What's your take on this? This is a new one for me, so I'd never heard of sunglasses having adverse effects on anyone before, other than the theory that sunglasses are to keep your eyes from getting the natural sunlight that they need, but that's a different thing altogether.
November 17th, 1986, a Boeing 747 was en route from Paris to Tokyo. The aircraft was occupied by only 3 people on this journey. When they cross over into the northeast corner of Alaskan airspace, the 3 men suddenly see something unexpected. There appears to be a large, glowing ball of light in the distance. On the onboard color radar, Terauchi sees a target for the object 12 kilometers ahead of them. Japan Airlines is pretty confused about what they're seeing, so they radio down to air traffic control. At first, air traffic control can't see anything. But then something pops up. Air traffic control knows that this image on the radar cannot be another commercial flight or a smaller private flight. Air traffic control next radios the Air Force's command center, asking if they can confirm or deny the presence of any military aircrafts in the area. Air Force Command Center radios back, saying that the military does not have any records of any aircraft flying in the area, but he does see something showing up on his military radar. They can clearly see the signature of an unknown aircraft flying closely to the Japan Airlines 747. Air traffic decides to radio a United Airlines flight to see if they can make visual contact with the object as they are flying nearby the same area. United Flight 69 reports back the following: "We've got the Japan airliner in sight, but I do not see anybody around him."
Radar anomalies, military denials, invisible objects. Sounds like a classic recipe for a cover-up.
These is just, I don't know, when I describe the pre-dynastic Egyptian vessels, I'm going to start calling them vessels. It's just because a lot of those things aren't as accessible. But if you've got these things sitting in museums around the world, and now we have tools that can actually measure their perfection, you can't make something to a standard and not have a tool, a measurement tool that can measure to that standard. To get something that kind of perfect, you have to have measuring tool. You know what I mean? And now it's the point cloud scanners are the most accurate measuring equipment in the world for a 3D object, unless inherent in your manufacturing process was perfection and you didn't ever have to pull a tape on it or level it, or, you know, it just, which means it's manifested in some way. I mean, whatever. These objects are from pre-dynastic Egypt. That's the first stop in understanding. And that means it's before the pharaohs, before the stuff. They know hieroglyphs. There's no very little art to speak of. Some of their pottery's painted, but then intermixed in their grave goods, carved from solid granite, right? You're not turning this on a wheel. You can make something that looks just like this on a wheel. No, well, not just like this. So the first stop, just remember, this is somebody, you take a block of solid granite and then you take away everything, including the interior and whatnot. And then when it has been measured, it's measured down to microns of perfection in multiple different dimensions. We're going to have a hands-on thing at the Cosmic Summit. We're going to have more vases on public display than anywhere. These.
Micron level granite work before pharaohs. We are definitely missing major pieces of our history puzzle. How can science ignore such important facts?
Yeah, the telepathic communication between black people and animals is intensifying, okay? I know you guys have seen the video of the little girl manipulating the seal, but this over here, this lady starts communicating in her mind to this giraffe, and the giraffe is responding in real time, y'all. This is amazing. Check this out.
So I have not been to a zoo in years because I don't like the idea of an animal being captive. But I told myself I would go and do some energy healing. So that's what I'm doing. And right here, I decided to ask, can you hear me? When that thing stopped chewing, when that giraffe stopped chewing, I was like, oh, hello now. And that's when it started moving its ears. And I was like, can you hear me? Can you feel me? And it was responding in a way as if it could. So then I was like, well, if you can hear me or feel me, come closer. Come closer to me. And when it started moving, I was like, oh. I just tell exactly what. Yeah, came closer. And then I was like, that was a coincidence, maybe. And then it turned and it looked at me and it's like, you called me? Now we just stand here staring at each other.
With the electromagnetic grid getting charged up from the sun, it's charging up the ley lines. Our telepathic connection with these animals are only going to get only stronger, y'all. It's only a matter of time. I have these birds visit me every single day. So yes, y'all, as these solar flares continue, this is only going to increase the connection between us and the animals. Nature's coming alive, baby. Let me know what you guys think about this video. The shift is...
Telepathy claims lack vital evidence, yet the human desire for connection persists. Maybe we do have a hidden part of our brain that can tap into this ability, but it has, well, long been forgotten and intentionally corrupted.
And what makes our ancient friends from Malta so intriguing is that in some of the skulls, they are missing what we would consider normal sutures, and in others, they have extra sutures. Specifically, in what we would consider a normal skull, we would see a coronal suture that runs from side to side and a sagittal suture that meets the coronal suture and runs from front to back. And in this skull, referred to by the museum as skull 32954, we can see that there's absolutely no sagittal suture. I have seen archaeologists try to argue against this missing suture by saying that it has simply been obliterated. Now, the physiological term obliteration means that when a suture closes up as we age, it has been compressed and has been ossified and boned over, and that it closes up significantly. But what the archaeologists always leave out is that even with complete obliteration, as we see the stages of closure, complete obliteration still leaves a scar that is very noticeable. You can always tell that a suture had been there in the first place. And one key fact that the archaeologists can never explain is why there is still a coronal suture but no sagittal suture. The body doesn't discriminate what sutures it wants to close up, it would close them both up. So why does one still exist but the other one is supposedly obliterated? It's a complete nonsense argument. And as we get right up close to skull 32954 with a macro lens, you can see the individual pores and you can tell that the suture didn't just close up, it never existed in the first place. The ancient long-headed masters had methods of perceiving energy that we do not currently possess, and they used it to build their sacred sites and temples in accordance with the biology of the earth itself. Our Museum of Tarot, Dicyan, and Aura goggles offer you a method of reclaiming the ability to perceive this hidden world around us. Get yours today on our website at museumoftarot.com.
Is it just age, or are Malta's skulls really telling something a lot more than we are told to believe, or led to believe at least.
Do I know what caused the Spain and Portugal blackout? And if I do, how do I tell you? First of all, Dark Storm Team and No Name 57 claim they were responsible. It's possible, but there are other things more suspicious. Geomagnetic activity. A lot of people talking about solar events. Yet there was no major activity yesterday. Weirdly, though, I have had messages from people who experience strange physical sensations, vibrations in their ears, lasting about an hour after the blackout, feeling a wave of heat that was hotter than what the thermometer temperature showed. Someone even had a seizure, and they had never had a seizure in their life. These types of physical reactions are in line with geomagnetic activity or these types of things. But what would be the motivation to do something like this? Also, if there was a big geomagnetic event, how would it precisely target Spain and Portugal when they're actually linked to the entire EU power system? So many possibilities, like sending a message. For example, if you don't like the mega green policies of Spain and Portugal and you want to make a point that they're vulnerable and we should stick with fossil fuels. I found this a very interesting comment from an expert.
An incredibly rare atmospheric phenomenon. It's called the induced atmospheric vibrations. This potentially could be down to very, very large and extreme temperature differences within layers of the atmosphere. We're talking about the difference in temperature between 1 kilometer up to 8 kilometers in the atmosphere, where these massive high voltage power lines tend to move the energy from one country to another.
Wait, she's saying the power's up kilometers in the sky? We don't have power lines in the sky.
Or did she slip up and mean satellites that are kilometers in the sky and are responsible for controlling green energy's solar and wind farms? Satellites are definitely hackable, but would that explain the physical sensations described in comments like this, which could be explained from things like infrasound, etc. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the comments. Take care.
I'm finding more and more interesting takes on the European power outage. This one was interesting to me because it backed up the claims with the evidence rather than speculation. Glamham is right, solar activity was fairly low and there was nothing remarkable going on at the time of these outages. Could it be a dry run of what's to come? Infrasound and DEWs are wildcards here, but honestly anything is possible.
If you have humans cut back their salt considerably, they become insulin resistant. Salt has earned a terrible reputation because of a series of studies that implicated salt consumption as a cause of high blood pressure. And really briefly, as a momentary physiology professor, that is a real effect. If you and I were to go eat salt, our body for the next several hours afterwards would retain its water in order to balance out the salt so that we didn't get too salty. So we would retain water in order to keep our salt at a normal level. And so that could be reflected by an elevated blood pressure. However, multiple huge studies have found that if you go to a population of humans that have high blood pressure and you tell them you need to cut your salt in order to correct your blood pressure, they may at most move their blood pressure by 1 or 2 points. It has an absolutely negligible, irrelevant effect. And it's because salt is not a key contributor to blood pressure. It's actually insulin resistance. Insulin resistance will force the body to hold on to salt. Insulin resistance will force the blood vessels to be very constricted, all of which play together to make for a very high blood pressure. So as much as we have been telling the world that we should be cutting back salt, no, we should have been telling them to cut back on what spikes your insulin, refined starches and sugars. But with regards to salt, it's interesting for me to note, where did that whole view come from? Within the United States, decades ago, there was a study that was published, and they called it the DASH diet. Dietary approaches to stop hypertension, DASH, the DASH diet. And in the DASH diet, one of the critical changes was to tell people to eat less salt. And when they found that when people adopt a DASH diet, it's amazing, their blood pressure goes down. However, unfortunately, they also tell people to do lots of other things with the DASH diet. Like when they tell someone to go on the DASH diet, they also tell them to eat less sugar and less refined starches and sugars. Well, it's possible, indeed, I would say it's absolutely the case, that what's actually lowering their blood pressure isn't that they cut their salt back, it's that they were cutting their refined starches and sugars back. And it's that that had the main effect. And the cutting the salt was just some innocent bystander. But to put a fine point on it, in human studies, if you have humans cut back their salt considerably, they become insulin resistant. So take a healthy group of humans, say you need to eat less salt, and they do so. If you measure them a week later while they're adhering to this, they will be significantly more insulin resistant than before they ever cut back their salt. It's one of the ironies of the whole scenario.
Is salt the scapegoat for other harmful things? Studies suggest that reducing refined carbs impacts blood pressure more, yet salt gets the blame. Food for thought on the diet dogma.
You know what? So I got a follow-up video that might explain why the Beebs is in the state that he's in.
But when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man.
So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when you said no?
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way.
What I find really interesting, of course, me being a bit of a Marvel nerd and knowing all the movies. So in the first Iron Man movie, so you have Robert Downey Jr., and then you had his buddy was Terrence Howard. And so he played in that movie War Machine. So supposedly he wanted more money for the next movie. And that's why they replaced him with Don Cheadle. But you know what? What if this is why he really got replaced? Is because he did not want to do what it took to be in like the most popular franchise that Disney had at the time. I mean, you think about it, like being a character in this Marvel series that obviously led up to Infinity War and Endgame, and you get to be this character. Like, how much money is that worth? So, like, you know, say he's going to turn down one role in an Iron Man movie when this is going to lead to the Avengers and Infinity War stuff, Captain America, all these other roles.
Who knows what that conversation was?
Well, he did mention that this has cost him all kinds of money in roles. What if that's the real story? Is that they were saying he was difficult to work with? Maybe
difficult
because he was not willing to play any role to get any role.
That makes a lot more sense, honestly. Like, it makes a lot more sense. Because, like,
yeah, because you know what I'm saying? Because it'd be short-sighted to draw a line in the sand about I want to be paid more money for Iron Man 2.
Bro, if
when his agent would have said, "Did you see?" Like, because Disney, when they started with Iron Man, so Iron Man was the very first series that led to Endgame, and so like this was like this 10-year plan of all these movies. Your agent would have said, "Hey, man,
take the less money.
Just take less money because it'll be worth it in the long run, because you'll be celebrated. You'll be on lunch boxes and all that kind of stuff."
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine the royalties?
Man.
They would get paid to be in all these different Marvel movies.
He would be like sitting so pretty. But
right, he wouldn't be Terrence Howard doing podcasts being called crazy. He'd be still on the red carpet, rubbing shoulders with all the bigwigs, right?
An interesting theory. What Howard had to say in that interview was very alarming, but I couldn't follow what he was saying very easily, and it certainly sounds like he was telling the truth, but he's an actor himself and has many ties to the same industry he speaks so openly against. I'm on the fence about this one. How about you guys? Pope Francis' cross here, satanic symbol or just another coincidence? The church's history is complex, but we can all see the similarities in symbolism. Can it all have an innocent explanation, I wonder?
Choose not to react to negativity that others throw at you. And that's a hard thing for people to learn. But once they master that, once they are comfortable in their own skin, then whatever people throw at you doesn't affect you, doesn't bother you. You can go on with your life. And you can steer your life the way you want to and not have others steer your life. You're in control of your ship. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Powerful words.
You should always try your best to not react to negativity. I know better than anyone that it's easier said than done. Not what with the comment section. I mean, you guys can go check it for yourself. There's always a bunch of people which are so filled with vitriol and they just have to express it, you know? And I do my best to just, you know, try not to react to it. But I am only human after all. But anyway, that's the point. Keep telling yourself that you will not react in a volatile or negative way when negative energy comes to you. Eventually, your subconscious mind will condition itself to be unresponsive to negative energies that, you know, you don't want in your life. Just give it a try. There's no harm in that.
When you build a picture of your goal in your conscious mind and you impress it upon your subconscious accepts it as real. When you imagine something, every bit as real as if it was there in your physical world. You're a creative being. It's like the earth. It doesn't care what you plant. When you're around people, you'll pick up feelings from them. It's either positive or negative. It is determined by their paradigm. The paradigm literally controls our behavior. You would wonder, why doesn't school teach us this? Because school does not understand it. When you learn to change your paradigm, you change your whole life. We're God's highest form of creation. You and I have more talent and ability than we'll ever hope to use in our lifetime.
And this ties into the previous clip. It's all about manifestation.
Almost like the moon is underwater. Look at the ripples. Listen to the birds singing. Alamo like they know.
This ripple on the moon looks like nothing more than the Earth's atmosphere. It's usually because the air above us is always moving and has different temperatures, which bends the light from the moon in slightly different ways as it travels to your eyes or camera lens in this case. A good example of this kind of thing is on a hot day. Look at the surface of the road on a sort of horizon or on the tip of a hill. You'll see the heat haze causing that kind of refraction.
medieval iceberg explained. First up, we got the Black Death. This was the devastating disease known as the bubonic plague that swept through Europe and Asia in the middle of the 1300s. It wiped out about 25 to 50 million people and was estimated to have taken out about 50% of Europe's population. This was the most fatal pandemic in human history, and while it was extremely terrible on its own, the effects to society, the economy, and religion itself was a lot greater than people really realized it was. The Knights Templar, this was a medieval military order of Christians whose main goal was to protect the Holy Lands and people traveling to them. And then, later on we get the King of France that kind of betrayed them, and then, national treasure and that sort of thing. Little Ice Age, this was exactly what it sounded like. From the 1300s to the 1850s, there was significant colder temperatures because of three main factors. One was that there was 4 massive volcanic eruptions which caused the entire Earth to be colder. Another thing was there was extremely low sunspot activity. And 3 was that there was a lack of ocean circulating warm air for some reason. And what's really crazy is this likely caused major historical events that happened because of this that you probably didn't realize was because of the cold temperatures. The cool weather caused mass starvation at times, and a big thing also was discontent in society because of this, which made people do things like blame their neighbor for being a witch, or the Vikings abandoning Greenland, and even the French and English going over to North America, which caused one of the biggest events in any history, which was, one side of the world reconnecting with the other. The Dancing Plague, this was a mysterious phenomenon where in 1518, people in Strasbourg, which is now modern-day France, were dancing uncontrollably. It started with just one woman who was dancing to no music playing, and then amassed to about 400 people dancing uncontrollably for weeks, until somewhere between 15 to 400 people died of exhaustion and heart failure. Historians estimate that the cause of this was anywhere from stress-induced mass hysteria to ergot poisoning, which was basically just like a fungus that you could accidentally eat that, molded in your wheat or whatever that made you hallucinate and kind of go crazy. The phantom time hypothesis, this is basically the idea that medieval times never happened. So this is a conspiracy theory that 1640 to 911 AD, roughly 300 years, was made up in order to rewrite history. So the purpose of why this history would have been made up is because key figures like the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and possibly even the Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII were all working together to fabricate this period to align historical significant dates. Particularly, they wanted to basically make it look like Otto III was emperor right at 1000 AD because it made him look special for some reason. Of course, the phantom time hypothesis is complete pseudo-history, and I do not believe this theory, and there's like a ton of outside history outside of Europe that clearly happened during those 300 years. The Headless Men, or Blummies. So the Headless Men was this thing that was described in both ancient Greek and Roman mythology, where there was this weird tribe that different people said they saw that they described had no neck, no head, but rather facial features like eyes, their nose, their mouth, all on their chest and shoulders. The stories of them were told as long ago as 500 BC, and famous people were said to encounter these things, such as Alexander the Great. Now, while initially there was a real nomadic tribe called the Blummies in Nubia, which was this region along the Nile River in southern Egypt, the Blummies slowly became known as something more out of this world due to rumors of them being like cannibals and really violent. Later on in the Middle Ages, their mythical status grew, where they started to be depicted as just having a face in the middle of their chest, and the explanation for how this legend came about, people just think they misinterpreted pictures of these tribal people in combat stances where their head was tucked into their chest, and they also wore like traditional headdresses which made them look like they had no heads. So now they're known as the, no head. No, they have no head people with no heads. Headless men, that's what I'm saying. Paintings with UFOs. So it seems there is a common theme through a few pieces of medieval artwork that shows a really wonderful normal picture and then a UFO up in the sky for some reason. One of the best examples of this is Madonna with Saint Giovanni, which looks like a normal Renaissance painting, but then in the background there's this little flying disc looking thing, and while some people say it's like just just a mess up or a blemish. I don't know why it would be a blemish, because they also painted a guy looking into the sky like this, so it's like they're drawing attention to it. And I'm not sure if this picture is correct, but I do believe they also put like light beams coming off of it. I mean, it really looks like a flying disc that was deliberately drawn in this picture. But there's also another picture that was painted a little bit later in like 1645 called The Baptism of Christ by Art D. Gilder. In this picture, we see what looks like a flying disc that's sending light beams down. And some people like to argue that it's supposed to be like the sun or the moon, but I mean, it looks exactly like a flying disc or a flying saucer. Others say it's supposed to be like representing God or the Holy Spirit, but it is a very strange picture, and I find it really cool. There's also the painting, the Crucifixion fresco, that was painted in 1350 that depicts people flying these crafts, but I think the crafts are supposed to represent the sun and the moon, which I think was just a big part of Byzantine culture. I think that's where this was painted, but others like to point to this phenomenon as being part of like the ancient astronaut theory, which I really like the idea of people in ancient times figuring out how to go up into space. Like, imagine, you know, you can't calculate anything, you don't have any technology, but maybe you have some sort of like primitive gunpowder or primitive rocket fuel, and you just blast yourself up into the atmosphere, and what are you gonna do? There's no way you could come down, and you probably already suffocated at this point, so I don't know why. I guess you would just go up and that's it. You probably, I don't think they would make it. I bet their craft would like immediately break apart. But anyways, yeah, some people think there were astronauts in ancient times, and that's, you know, a kind of a theory. Medieval found footage. So this could be referring to a couple things. There is this YouTube video called Medieval Found Footage that basically depicts a black and white video of what looks to be medieval times, soldiers walking around. It's showing different structures, but really it seems this footage came from like a couple different documentaries and movies and was all pieced together with a filter. But then as you get further on in the video, all of a sudden there are World War II German soldiers. Basically they have Die Glocke, which is supposed to be like this ancient mythical artifact that the Germans had during World War II that was either anti-gravity technology or a time machine. And so here I'm guessing it's supposed to be a time machine, and so you could probably conclude that this video is supposed to be taken by Germany during World War II when they got Die Glocke, and then went back into medieval times and took a video and for some reason brought it back into the future, and they still didn't win the war. But they got this footage from medieval times. Yeah, Die Glocke. That'd be really cool if this was real. I like the idea of it. I mean, I think it would be sick if it was real, but it's not. Medieval found footage could also be referring to like Leonardo da Vinci and how he had this sfumato technique for painting. Like when he did the Mona Lisa, the way he blended colors was so incredible that it was so close to photorealistic that people don't understand how he did it. And so it's still a big mystery. Maybe the Mona Lisa is medieval found footage in that sense, that he somehow created a picture that was so close to found footage that we just don't understand it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being deranged just like me. But I appreciate each and every one of you watching my content on here. And I wish we had astronauts in ancient times. Maybe we will someday. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Well, that is an iceberg if I ever heard one. The Middle Ages were wild. No matter where you were in the world, it seemed like there was always something crazy and deadly going on. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, please consider dropping a like on it, as it always helps to push the video further out on the algorithm, and it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you made it this far, share the number 10 in the comment section. Let me know if you made it here. And if you want to help out even more, please consider sharing this video on your own social media. It does a lot to help, well, grow our Awakened family here on YouTube. You know, the more the better. Keep those conversations flowing. But for now, stay safe, stay well, and stay curious. Until next time.